Now, as a fighter, Steve McQueen, now he is good in that department because that son of a gun got the toughness in him.
Steve McQueen left more than cool cars and classic films. He left a secret empire. A hidden vault, a shocking will, and one family member completely cut out. Decades later, a stunning discovery turned myth into millions. What began as Hollywood legends spiraled into something darker, revealing secrets no one expected. The deeper the search went, the more twisted the story became. And it's far from over. From reform school to royalty, Steve McQueen wasn't born into fame, he was born into chaos. His father walked out before he could speak. His stepfather was violent, and his mother left him behind more than once. By 14, McQueen was in a reform school called Boys Republic in Chino, California, where survival was more important than schoolbooks. It was there he learned to fight back, to rely only on himself, and to trust no one. That rough upbringing didn't break him, it hardened him. McQueen's attitude became his shield and later his selling point. He didn't care about fitting in or following rules. He had no interest in playing nice, and somehow that made him stand out. Producers hated the drama but loved the money he brought in. Before the fame, McQueen joined the Marines. He clashed with authority and got thrown into the brig more than once. But he finished his service and later used that experience to add edge to his roles. That sense of danger made him believable on screen. He wasn't acting, he was just being himself. In Hollywood, McQueen didn't chase roles, roles chased him. He wouldn't show up on time, wouldn't follow scripts, and sometimes walked off sets. But the audience didn't care. His screen presence made people look past the chaos. By the 1960s, he was one of the highest-paid stars in the world. The Great Escape launched him into the stratosphere. He didn't speak much in the film, but his silent stare said more than pages of dialogue. The motorcycle stunt in that film became legendary, even though a stuntman did the actual jump. Still, it added to the McQueen myth: cool, fearless, untouchable. Fans couldn't get enough. After that came Bullet, where he performed his own driving stunts through San Francisco. The car chase scene set a new standard in action filmmaking. That green Mustang fastback became a cultural icon, and a piece of gold in McQueen's legacy. Years later, that same Mustang sold for $37 million at auction. His choices on set had value far beyond the paycheck. Off-screen, McQueen hated Hollywood parties. He wore jeans to premieres, skipped press events, and avoided the spotlight. But that mystery only made him more valuable. Producers knew he was difficult, but audiences didn't care. So, the studios kept paying him more to show up. McQueen started to rewrite Hollywood rules. In 1968's The Thomas Crown Affair, he demanded $750,000 up front, a massive sum at the time. Then came The Towering Inferno, where he negotiated a back-end deal that gave him a piece of the profits. That move earned him over $12 million. He didn't just make money, he made history. And it didn't stop there. McQueen charged $50,000 just to read a script. If he turned it down, he still kept the money. Studios were desperate to work with him because they knew he sold tickets. He used that demand to control everything from wardrobe to camera angles. What most people didn't know was that McQueen was also stockpiling wealth in other ways. He collected cars, motorcycles, and watches, hundreds of them. He bought land, invested in rare collectibles, and owned real estate in California, Mexico, and Idaho. He wasn't flashy, but he was smart. While his peers spent recklessly, McQueen quietly built an empire. One of his best-kept secrets was his business deal with Honda. McQueen had a stake in the company's U.S. motorcycle marketing campaigns. His image was used to promote bikes, and it worked. Sales exploded. That partnership brought in millions long after he stopped riding for the cameras. It was a branding move ahead of its time. And there's more. McQueen's involvement in off-road racing wasn't just for fun. He used it to promote motorcycles and gear he secretly owned shares in. That desert racing lifestyle became part of his brand, and companies paid him just to be seen in their products. He made millions without even talking about it. His silence was his strategy. When McQueen passed away in 1980, most people thought he died broke. Cancer treatments, lawsuits, and legal bills gave that impression. But in reality, his wealth was scattered across hidden accounts, property, and licensing rights. He had structured everything to stay private. That plan worked for decades. Nobody knew how much he was really worth. And it's still paying off. Today, his estate brings in millions every year from licensing his name, image, and film rights. His car and motorcycle collection alone is worth tens of millions. Steve McQueen didn't just build a career, he built a fortune that keeps growing long after his final credits rolled. The king of cool became the king of legacy. Buried in barns and sealed storage, McQueen's private collection turned out to be the most valuable treasure. Hollywood almost forgot hidden assets that nobody tracked. Steve McQueen wasn't loud about money. He didn't flash gold watches or pose in front of giant mansions. Most people thought he lived modestly, but behind the scenes he was building something massive. He spent quietly and strategically, turning his passion for machines into a private empire. No press coverage, no public records, just storage units and locked barns filled with value. By the 1970s, McQueen had gathered one of the largest private motorcycle collections ever seen. Over 130 rare and vintage bikes were part of his stash. He favored British, German, and American models, including Triumphs, Husqvarnas, and Indians. Some bikes were customized just for him, one-offs that collectors would later pay huge sums for. He didn't display them. He stored them in temperature-controlled garages on remote properties. His love for cars was just as serious. McQueen owned nearly 60 high-end historic vehicles, many of them now considered irreplaceable. He had a 1963 Ferrari 250 GT Lusso, a Jaguar XKSS, and the actual Mustang GT 390 from Bullitt. He also kept a rare Porsche 917K, one of the most iconic racing cars ever made. That car alone sold at auction years later for over $14 million. McQueen wasn't just collecting for fun. He was investing in assets that would grow over time. Each bike, each car was picked with care, most had a story or racing background. He didn't buy them to flip or show off. He bought them because he understood long-term value in physical, unique objects. What shocked many came years after he died. In 2006, a dusty barn in New Mexico was opened by his estate managers. Inside they found an untouched treasure trove. Dozens of motorcycles, stacks of helmets, leather jackets, original film scripts, and even race gear with his name stitched inside. It had sat quietly for decades, completely forgotten. Experts who cataloged it estimated the total value at over $30 million. That barn discovery became a turning point in how McQueen's wealth was viewed. Up until then, most people assumed his estate was simple, some residual film earnings, maybe some land. But the barn revealed a deeper layer of wealth that wasn't obvious. It was like a time capsule of Hollywood royalty. The items inside were museum quality, and most had never been seen by the public. He also had smaller but high-value collections. Vintage watches, signed photos, one-of-a-kind film props, all stored in private safes and vaults. One of his Rolex Submariners, for example, sold for over $234,000 at auction. Another rare timepiece, a Heuer Monaco worn in Le Mans, went for $2.2 million. These weren't showpieces. McQueen wore them, used them, and then stored them away. McQueen's secret assets didn't stop at collectibles. He had partial ownership in racing teams, film licensing companies, and small businesses tied to gear and equipment. One of his quietest deals involved a desert racing company that used his image for promotions and paid royalties directly to his estate. He also held profit-sharing arrangements in several of his movie contracts. Even if a film stopped airing, the licensing value didn't. Another layer few people know about: McQueen licensed his likeness and name during his lifetime in ways most stars didn't. He had early rights deals with brands like Tag Heuer and Triumph. These deals, though small back then, allowed his estate to cash in big decades later. Today, companies still pay to use his name, image, and old footage. That passive income now brings in millions every year. What McQueen created wasn't obvious wealth, it was embedded wealth. It couldn't be seen from the outside, but it sat there, gaining value. Every car, every contract, every dusty jacket in that barn told a piece of the story. He didn't build a flashy empire, he built a hidden one. And it turned out to be far more valuable. Even his real estate choices were calculated. He didn't live in the center of Hollywood, he owned remote properties in California and New Mexico. Some were large ranches, ideal for storing bikes and planes. Others were just quiet getaway spots. These locations doubled as storage zones for his collections, well-protected, private, and never shown to the press. One more surprise: McQueen also collected old film reels of his performances. He stored multiple copies of his most famous scenes, along with personal annotations. These reels are now part of licensing deals that allow streaming companies to restore and reuse his footage. That's an income stream that didn't even exist when he died. But he set the groundwork for it long before digital media took over. What McQueen built wasn't just a collection, it was a blueprint. A way for a movie star to stay rich without always working. He turned passion into property and mystery into money. And when it all came to light, people finally understood why he was more than just an actor. He was a brand, a businessman, and a legend whose legacy would outlive every paycheck. The will that divided a family and sparked a fortune. On November 7, 1980, Steve McQueen died in Juarez, Mexico, after undergoing a secret surgery. He had mesothelioma, a rare and aggressive cancer caused by asbestos exposure, and chose to avoid standard U.S. treatments. Instead, he flew to Mexico to try Laetrile, a banned, unproven substance made from apricot pits. The operation was risky, unapproved, and desperate. He didn't survive the night. Back home, the press rushed to report that McQueen died broke. They said cancer treatments drained his money and his assets were gone. But the truth was far different. The full value of his estate wasn't immediately obvious. What he left behind would only reveal its true worth years later. At the time of his death, McQueen's estate was valued at around $2 million.